morning, California. Welcome to California Free Radio. I'm Mike Netter, accompanied by Scott Piotr and Kurt English, which you'll see him back in 1 second, broadcasting all over California.
As he turns off his phone.
Yes, as I turn off my phone because I want to actually someone reminded me of something we should know. Share our show. The show is live on @NetterMike, @TaxFighter.7. It is also live on LinkedIn under my real name, Mike Netter, on our Facebook groups, my page Going Out to Rebuild California, where there's a group in every county. And if that isn't enough for you, we're also on the YouTube Outrage channel. And speaking of outrage, Scott, I can see by the sign behind you, there's a lot to be outraged about tonight. But I want to start with an opening blast as I see Kurt moving into the mezzanine here. The sign behind Scott right now talks about gas prices. And there's two things this week, well, really 3 or 4 or 5, but let's open with 2 that really tick me off. One is not only what gas prices are today and what they're going to, but it seems to be the inability of the press, the mainstream media, which I talk swimming upstream against the mainstream in my Netter News newsletter, which if you're not getting it out there, sign up, it's free, and you have that kind of money. But what really strikes me as bizarre...
Not after buying the gas, sorry.
Say what?
Not after buying all that gas.
Not after buying all that gas, you may not. You may owe them a rebate. What really strikes me as bizarre is the lack of reporting and the lack of truth that the main things like I'm going to pick on, which is easy, the LA Times, NBC, ABC, and CBS are talking about what is coming at us like a freight train, certainly not like a diesel truck because they'll be stopped in their tracks July 1st. And that's the increased price which is coming in gas. I'm on a lot of social media, as many of you out there know, and certainly peeking a lot of the local ones, Nextdoor and some of the other social medias. And those certainly aren't politically active groups, but the people on there which I monitor more than participate are misled by groups like NBC. NBC is saying, well, there's only a tax of 1.6 cents. What's the big deal? Coming up July 1st. Of course, they neglect to tell you about the refineries, et cetera, et cetera. They don't tell you about the carb increase. They're also not riling the public up about, oh my God, these massive immigration raids and people are just being hauled off all over. Look, we found somebody being hauled off in handcuffs.
Wait. Are you saying they're exaggerating?
I'm saying not only exaggerating, but where was the press out there, if you know, under Obama? But a shocking one, gentlemen, that I put out this week was Joe Biden, or more correctly, his administration, or more correctly, the people around him, we don't know who they are, actually deported more illegal aliens than Trump did in 2016, this fiscal year. Not reported. There've only been about... Go ahead.
Say that again.
Not reported. No, I'm kidding. No. So Joe Biden's administration, this fiscal year, which ends in October, actually has deported more illegal aliens than Donald Trump did in 2016. Now, hold on. Biden let in, I get it, a lot more illegal aliens, so a smaller percentage. But in terms of sheer numbers, the Biden administration has been deporting them throughout until Trump took office February 20th. What's also, you guys want to hear another fascinating figure?
I haven't heard that on the news.
No, Biden, you haven't?
Deported more people than Trump. What the heck? That was just during his first term.
No, that was during Trump's first term when you compare it to fiscal years in Trump's 2016. And again, my secret source is Google. You can look it up and the ICE statistics, which are public knowledge, but they don't talk about it. What's even more shocking, with all the gnashing in the streets, and we talked about how the protesters are being paid for, is that probably in Los Angeles, my best guess estimate is the Trump administration has seized about 500 people in LA County out of a county of about 10 million that they've hauled off. but the cameras are there every moment. I got to admit, it's a lot easier to shop at Walmart right now. Can't get my car washed, but that's okay. Okay, I'm living
Wash
for
it
art.
yourself, Mike.
Now I'm going to be working on that, Kurt, but I'm not that kind of guy, so I'm leaving it dirty. But my point is the press. Now, have a very special guest tonight, and our guest is part of the press that reports the facts. And one of the favorite publications that I read all the time, and one of the few publications that I don't quote copy and paste some of my post runs, because I respect the editor of this one enough to publish the entire article. Scott, will you please bring in our guest of honor? Which actually is me, but the real guest of honor is Katie Grimes. Katie, welcome to California Free Radio.
Thank you. It's nice to be with you all.
Well, you say that so far, Katie, but it's early in the show, so you might want to hold that.
It is.
A couple things here. Explain to people, as I've told you before, we have go ahead.
You didn't really explain that Katie is the editor of California Globe.
Well, I was going to let Katie do that because the only thing I know about the globe and it's round and a flat earther, probably a liberal, was arguing with me about the other day. So let's talk about
fake media, and she's the real media.
Really, let's talk about the California Globe. What is the Globe? How do people find the Globe? And the kinds of stories that you write.
Well, the California Globe is very easy to find, californiaglobe.com. We are an online state house news service, if you will. We have no paywalls, so anybody can check into our website multiple times daily because we are putting up stories coming straight out of the state capitol constantly, 8-10 times a day. And what we report is what's really happening at the Capitol. A, we don't sugarcoat it. B, we also report to you what a lot of the other media will not report. And that's kind of been my specialty. I found very early on in my journalistic career that when I was sitting in the back of the Assembly or the Senate while session.
Oh, Katie froze. Hopefully we'll get Katie back.
Well, now all we've got is this montage of her. Now's the time we can make fun of her, right?
We might have to. Here, hold on 1 second. Let me text Katie.
She needs to refresh her screen. Katie, if you can hear us, please refresh your screen.
Let me text her really quick here. The Globe also does something. The Globe also does something that most people don't, is that they report the facts. Hold on 1 second here. Let me text Katie.
Yeah, she's disconnected altogether now.
Yeah. And what they do by reporting the facts a lot is they actually take and report real news. And I get tired, gentlemen, of hearing about right-wing rants, and we do right-wing rants ourselves, but a lot of them are left-wing rants listed as opinion pieces, and properly so. But most of what I read in the Globe is actual based on deep factual reporting.
And they take reporters from all over the state on their various areas of expertise. If you want a well-written article on various issues, the Globe is the place to go. And
100%.
The right wing, our side, are actually conservative and good news. The aggregators tend to quote the California Globe more than just about any other source because it's just a good, reliable source of facts.
Well, they go deep on articles too, and I want to mention that for everybody out there. Look, part of the problem is, and I want to talk about gas because gas is certainly something in common that everybody, I think, faces part of the common human experience. It's a complicated issue, and we'll get Katie back in here, hopefully, to talk about why gas is going up. But let me start with what little I know. Kurt, are you ready?
We're ready.
Okay. So let's start with what little I know, which is actually a lot. So where I talk about the mainstream press, which are the TV guys, and also shocking that Gavin Newsom lies, except for his memo, is that the excise tax on gas, which was voted in, is going up 1.6 cents. There's Katie. Katie, you're back.
I'm sorry.
Don't worry about it.
All of a sudden, you froze and then disappeared.
And Katie, I want to admit it's a lot better than our last guest where 3 guys in a black van pulled up and hauled off and we had to deal with a blank screen. So look at the upside.
Okay. Apologies.
Gee, I'm going to scare her. Don't worry about it. So we started to talk about, let's talk again about the Globe. We know what I like about the Globe is you guys are not really an opinion. You know, so much of the LA Times are opinions not marked as columns that they put in there, right?
Right.
And what you do is you publish articles where you you give the facts and give the reasons behind it. And one of the reasons I wanted you on tonight, talk about that a little bit. By the way, talk a little bit about the history of the Globe. Hi, Stephanie. And what's behind it and how did the Globe get started? Because I don't even know this.
Wow, that's a lot. Let me go back to kind of the stories we do. We do hard news stories. That's kind of the bread and butter, just, factual reporting from the Capitol. But it's not he said, she said, boring journalism that, any idiot can produce. It's, we talk to people. We have conversations with lawmakers. We talk to their staff. We talk to lobbyists. We talk to, industry people. So there's a lot of that. We do publish opinion pieces, but I will tell you, every opinion piece that we have is full of links to the sources that back up the professional, educated opinion that is in that article. So I'm never uncomfortable even talking about how, journalists have opinions. There is called point of view journalism also. And, I don't run away from it and pretend that we don't have those opinions, but they're based on a lot of research and a lot of education.
So does somebody like a Senator Scott Wiener sit there and see you come in and kind of go the other way?
Oh, yeah. Believe me, Senator Wiener's office never returns my calls. And at a Gavin Newsom press conference, I never get called on.
Shocking.
I know.
Let's talk about something that I think to the average public is confusing. And when you went off for a second, and we're really racking in the viewers here tonight, actually, Twitter X has done something new where they're announcing that we're live, which is kind of exciting. Oh, wow. So let's talk about the price of gas. And I don't know how much you heard, but let me take a step back. NBC, and I'm sorry to cuss for everybody out there if little children are listening, and many of these, they're talking about, gas tax is only going up 1.6 cents a gallon. But there's this thing called the CARB. Right. And in the car, it's very confusing because no meant yes when the legislature voted on it. Newsom's own memo, which came out, looked like it was written by Mao Tits Tung himself and barely translated into English, because he has to put out a chart, which no one, of course, reads. What are we going to expect to see July 1st, and how does it vary?
Well, so, and forgive me, I have to read here for you just to explain this. So the gas tax that's coming July 1st is kind of a two-part tax. Yes, there is an annual inflation excise tax increase that we now have annually. It didn't used to be annual, but we do now. And that it will be the smaller of the amounts. That will be, as the California Taxpayers Association explained, a little over, it's going to increase, let's see here, the 59.6 cent per gallon excise tax to 61.2 cents per gallon. So that's the small amount. Everybody's going, it's 2 cents. It's nothing more than that. What they're not telling you is what we've been reporting on since October of 2024, that the California Air Resources Board did vote to increase the low carbon fuel standard. I know eyes are glazing over, but it's all part of the AB 32 garbage. And that is the up to 65 cents per gallon increase. And so California's gas taxes are going up.
Katie, I've got to stop you for 1 second. I apologize. The reason I was going like that, because even though the government says there's nothing to see here, Let's
plenty.
talk about when that committee actually moved the vote to, which I found quite fascinating in 2024, which was how many days after the national election?
Yeah, just a couple days.
Yeah, isn't that nothing? Don't worry about it. We're just waiting until we see
Right.
how it turns out, and we're in a bunker.
Exactly.
So what you're
Um,
talking about, just so everybody knows, the carb is not a carb that's on on an engine. We're talking about
right.
the California Air Resources Board,
That's where
and
I
the
was just going
committee
to
that I'm
go.
referring to is the Carb Committee, which is made up of what, Newsom and legislative appointees.
Yeah, they're all governor's appointees essentially. I think the Senate gets one choice and the Assembly gets one choice, but they're all raging environmental leftists or people who will march in lockstep with the governor. Unappointed, unaccountable. And here's the hitch. The reason the state government is not admitting that this is a tax is because an unelected board of political appointees is not legally or constitutionally allowed to pass taxes. But they do, because the legislature has abdicated their oversight responsibility. I know, eyes glazing over again, but
No,
that's
we're not
what's happening.
glazing over.
Yeah,
I'm just amazed how they move it around. And sorry to stop you,
right.
but we're interactive here in the show. I don't know what kind of car you drive, Katie, but
Oh,
my car has one hole in it to stick a nozzle in to put gas in. I don't know about
yes,
anybody else's. Mine has one. And I look up and see how much it is per gallon. It doesn't have another nozzle hole for fees. I'm sure they're
right.
working on that right now. And so to the
Probably.
average person, this is the bottom line is the government's kind of giving us the shot.
Yeah,
Go on. It's a tax, it's a fee, it's call it
it's a
whatever they
tax.
want. It's
Yeah.
going up, right?
Right. And that's the bottom line is the gas prices are going up, which is why USC professor, who's an economist, Michael Misch, said that by 2026, we will be looking at $8.63 per gallon gasoline in this state. And it is not just because of the gas taxes. He addresses those very clearly and accurately, but also because we've got 2 refineries shutting down. And then today we hear that the oil industry says that we are at an unbelievable crossroads of a crisis about to hit the state. We don't even produce enough oil and gas to punch through the pipelines. Could a governor possibly be this incompetent, or is it this evil?
Boy, with Newsom, that's a tough call. Come on, Katie. Go ahead,
It's both.
Scott.
I go for both. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you talked about the different things. The excise tax. That's a nice way of saying it's the gas tax,
Correct.
right? And that's pegged to go up with cost of living. So then this low carbon fuel standard tax. That's the one that CARB's nailing us with.
Yes.
Now they're saying that first of all, the Republicans introduced legislation earlier in the year, gave them an opportunity to put that on hold, so they wouldn't be raising the price of gas for us, right?
Yes.
And every Democrat voted against it.
Correct.
So they had an opportunity to do that. Now, what they're doing is they're increasing the regulations on the refineries, which is going to then increase the gas. And there's
Yes.
debate as to what that is. They didn't sit there and say, "Hey, add 65 cents a gallon and mail it to us every Friday." They basically said, "We're going to make you do this with the gas, and it's going to cost more." And the estimates, like you say, your USC guy is saying that's like 65 cents a gallon.
Right. Exactly.
Then you have the other factors. Talk to us about the refineries closing down.
Well, before
Well,
we get there,
yeah.
hold on. Sorry, sorry, Scott, but I want to make another point that I don't think sinks home, since most people in California are surprised by things like the cost of water and microphones and everything else. What I'm driving at is this isn't just a tax on what you see pay at the pump.
No.
Would you mind talking to us about diesel fuel? And by the way, if you want to escape from California, leaving on a jet plane, to quote Peter, Paul, and Mary, isn't that going up too substantially?
Yes.
Explain
Exactly.
that to us.
Yeah, so all fuels in California are going up. We know, so diesel, a lot of people drive diesel trucks. Almost all of, yeah, I have a truck, but it's not a diesel. It has one hole for the gas also. But most of the, the long haul truckers are driving diesel powered vehicles, which the California Air Resources Board tried to destroy with that ridiculous fuel filter, which magically lights the truck on fire a lot of times. That's another show, another day. But yeah, so we've got jet fuel, diesel fuel, everything's going up. And that means all goods and services are going to increase the prices also. So everything that we drive into this state, ship into this state, fly into this state, or fly out of this state is going up in price because of this.
And because, Katie, you know I'm a simple man, you know me since the days of the recall, I could shout recall Gavin on stage. Explain this again for me slowly. This is going to happen every July now until the end of time. And we don't know exactly, unlike where the 1.6 cents that the press is talking about, we really have no idea what like next year's CARB is going to be. Is this correct?
That is correct. That is the problem with an unaccountable elected or unaccountable board of political appointees. We have no idea where they're going. And they've even admitted that they never take into consideration their fee increases, how it's going to affect the bottom line at the gas pump or goods and services. They don't even calculate that in. So obviously there's not a single economist on that board. But the other thing that's so interesting is that the way this excise tax used to be presented, I'll say, to the people, is that the Department of Finance, which is the governor's administration, would request an increase in the excise tax of the Board of Equalization, which is made up of elected board members. They would have a public agenda, a public hearing, a public vote, and they would either vote it up or vote it down. And everybody interested could participate in that process. When Jerry Brown was still governor, he pretty much tried to kick the Board of Equalization to the curb and created I can't even remember the name of it, the California Department of Fee and Administration or something just stupid like that, which nobody pays attention to because they don't know what it is. And this is also part of the governor's administration, like the Department of Finance is. And so completely unaccountable. There's no vote. They just dictate what the excise tax will be. They had the legislature implement through some legislation that this is an annual increase to keep up with inflation. So we no longer have this participation process of an elected board to say, hey, wait a minute, isn't our excise fee a little high already? None of that happens anymore. It's just automatic now.
And this isn't a fee, which is a percentage. Sorry, Scott, but I'm really trying to get my arms around this. So even if magically I went into my backyard like the Beverly Hillbillies and drove, oil spewed out of my yard. Which wouldn't matter. Because in California, I wouldn't be allowed to keep it, but let's put that down. This really has nothing to do with supply and demand, correct? This just has to do with what we call giving the shaft. Go ahead, Scott and Kurt, hit Katie with a couple questions.
Well, Katie, we talked a little bit about the refineries closing now. We got Phillips 66 in Los Angeles, Valero and Benicia. And I heard that the number is about 18% of our refinery production is just going to shut down because they cannot make a living in California.
Yes.
So
that is correct.
They're going to reduce.
Yeah, I apologize. There's another refinery in the Central Coast. I think it was a Phillips 66 that is now biofuels. So it is also no longer producing oil and gas necessarily. And so it's actually more like 20%, which I think is what Professor Misch from USC used in his calculation.
So I guess you also saw the Supreme Court now has allowed, I think this was just today or yesterday, they're allowing gas companies, oil and gas companies, to sue the state of California. The state of California basically said, no, you can't sue us, we're state, get lost. And the Supreme Court said, nah, you can sue them. And so the suit that they want to bring is that they're going to allow the gas and oil companies to sue the state of California to allow them to sell gas in California, refined gas in California, which would not meet the California air standards. So it would be cheaper gas because they wouldn't have to refine them to the same level as the California refineries have to do it. Which is, I'm sure that the USC professor did not get into that yet.
Not yet.
that could actually work to our benefit. Anyway, talk to us about.
I want Kurt to weigh in on this too,
All right,
because Kurt's
I've got
actually
a
an attorney too.
question.
Yeah.
Back in the days of Proposition 13, there was a tax revolt in California.
Yes.
Do you think, Katie, $8 a gallon, $8.63 a gallon gas next year during an election year would impact the election, and if so, how?
I do. I really do, because it's the same idea. You accurately represented Prop 13 as, our grandmothers were being property taxed out of their lifelong homes. So yes, and we've said, and I'm not being patronizing or mocking when we say people already are having to choose. Particularly, you think about lower income people that have to drive great distances to work. They're making choices about what goes in that grocery basket and how much goes in the gas tank, because things are that tight. Food prices are still up, and now gas prices are climbing again. So I do believe it could be either be another tax revolt or, frankly, an election revolt. And I really do feel like there is already some momentum building in our state, because it's not just the gas prices, it's the price of everything, and certainly gas prices drive that. But it's, we watched Proposition 36 get passed in the last election. Every county in the state passed it. That is huge, and that means people are paying attention to the quality of life issues which are harming them the most, like high crime, and I think in this case, high taxes.
Katie,
Well,
we have
here's
a
a
comment.
follow-up. Should we have, and Mike weigh on this, should we have an initiative to zero out the California gas taxes and make people vote on it next year?
I would say yes. Those seem to do very, very well. It just takes an awful lot of money and effort to get things on our ballot anymore.
How about a ballot to get rid of CARB?
Well,
I like that.
let me dive in on a couple things here. And Robert has an interesting comment. He thinks Newsom's goal is to make gases so expensive. Katie, to go back what you said, it's hard to tell if he's evil or stupid a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I don't even know that he thinks it through. It's kind of like the old supervillain in the cartoons, where it's like, didn't think of that when the hero comes along.
Yeah.
Let's cover a couple things, though, because you two gentlemen, well, and you two guys on the show with me, bring up a couple interesting points, okay? One is the gas tax is a tax. I want to kind of split something out. And Katie, please correct me if I'm wrong, because I know you will. The gas tax is a tax that the people voted not to get rid of, and we could do an initiative. But CARB is interesting, in my not so humble opinion, because to your point where you went into the eyes glazing over about there's the part of equalization and there's Jerry Brown. CARB is actually part of the California Constitution. And that's interesting, because CARB is a board authorized by the California Constitution. And I think it's interesting for most people out there, and Katie, you kind of glazed over this a little bit fast, not intentionally, because we know it in political circles. It's a board guaranteed by the California Constitution, like the utility board, that can put it up your posteriors, let's say down south, where the people are picked by the governor of California, and their terms, correct me if I'm wrong again, don't they go beyond when the governor's even elected? They're like,
yes.
Yeah, 6-year terms, 8-year terms. So we actually probably need maybe a twofold thing, if anybody's out there listening, to maybe even change the California Constitution. So all these boards, it seems the governor, whether, by the way, Republican or Democrat, has an inordinate amount of power to pick people who politically agree with them. And then the governor, whoever it is the heck out of here, because we got in term limits. But the CARB board, like the PUC board, kind of goes on like forever, right?
Yes. Yeah. Unlike Congress, or, when a presidential appointee is, or when the president changes, the new president can get rid of existing appointees, other than the Fed chairman. That's another story. But yeah, he can appoint all new people. And really, yeah, I like that idea.
So this scoreboard really is, as we kind of finish this segment, because there's something else I want to go on while we have you here. That the sign behind Scott may soon, as soon as next year, not be for a gallon of gas, but may actually be for a quart of gas. It may be by the liter pretty soon, like in Europe, because literally the refineries are shutting down.
Mm-hmm.
The state, I get it that the oil companies are suing the state's suing the oil companies. For the average person like me, the refineries are shutting down. And this is at the end of 2025. And the first quarter of 26, they're kind of going bye-bye.
Yeah. And Chevron's leaving.
And so, what is it, Vallejo? How do you say their name? They're leaving.
Valero. Yeah.
Valero, sorry, I was close.
Yeah.
And I also want to, Scott, bring up something else here that I don't think a lot of people grasp. There is no oil pipeline. I've said this a million times that comes from Texas to California. The pipeline doesn't cut through the Rocky Mountains, okay? So California has to import oil, which for all you tree huggers, both of you watching this show, okay, it's a lot more whatever into the air when they bring these big ships in. And this affects really the 7 western states, who even I think Arizona and Nevada were ticked off at Gavin for what he's doing with it, right?
Yes, they were.
Refresh us on that. I believe the Democratic governor of Arizona wrote Gavin, put it up your posterior letter. Is that a good way to put it?
Both the Nevada governor and Arizona governor were thoroughly irritated at Gavin Newsom. Not just for the refinery shutting down, but for Chevron leaving the state, as they rely on us. And what's so disgusting is that California could produce not only all the oil and gas we could possibly ever use, we could probably provide much of the country. Think about our.
No, I know we're sitting like 100 billion barrels of oil or something.
Why
right?
wouldn't we want to do that?
Yeah, all you have to do is open up some of the existing oil wells they've shut down and the offshore drilling and everything else.
Yep.
It's so funny. Ever since the UCSB oil spill out there in Santa Barbara, they've shut down the offshore drilling. Any moron that's walked along the beach in Santa Barbara knows that you get the tar balls long before they started drilling offshore. In fact, if anything, the offshore drilling released the pressure on the ground. You had fewer tar balls on the beach than you did before they started offshore drilling.
Yes.
And, we're a net importer, which, like Mike pointed out, all these tankers come into the ports and belch all sorts of diesel fumes and everything because they're totally unregulated and we're not allowed to regulate them.
Right.
And we have to spend all that money to import them. We have the impacts of the pollution when they're imported. When, like you say, we got enough oil on the ground that we could be providing almost half or more of the country with fuel.
And Katie, I want to add something else here again. I'm sorry, I know this is your segment, but we're going to jump in here because the 7 states, the 7 western states, and again, please correct me if I'm wrong. I do this from memory, and I'm old. That are the Western Petroleum Association. Mm-hmm. When oil comes in, whether it's by ship, dropped in by the Pelicans, which supposedly have been harmed, or however it gets here, it's got to go straight to a refinery. And with those, because you can't take heavy oil and truck it into Nevada where they can open their own refineries. It's kind of impractical. So this is really going to have a drastic effect on most of America. You got to ask the question. I know you don't know the answer. When are the feds going to step in? Because this is really getting to the point of where this is 7 pretty populous areas. Do you think the feds will step in?
E-commerce. Yeah, let's have a drill baby drill initiative.
Well, I actually think it's there's the commerce issue, obviously. There's a couple things going on here. So when the oil we import is not nearly as clean as the oil we produce ourselves. So we're doing so much more of a refinery process on it than we would otherwise have to do on our own. There's that. And then I'm sorry, part 2 of your question?
I don't remember anymore. No, I'm kidding.
I know.
Part 2 of my question was that this is going to drastically affect 7 states'
Oh,
economy.
right.
It's really interstate. I guess it's interstate commerce because
It
the
is.
refineries exist in California, but they ship gas to these 7 states.
Right.
We can't get gas from Canada, Alaska, Texas, unless
Yeah.
it's trucked in, right? So
Exactly. Yeah.
when
And
do you
so
think?
yeah, it's
Go ahead.
more truck traffic on the roads. And again, it's more imported oil, again, which isn't as clean as what we produce in America. The other thing that I think is something that the Trump administration will probably be considering is I actually think this is a national security issue.
Right.
Because
Yes.
California used to produce tremendous amounts of oil and gas. And, even going back to our World War II days, the refineries and the production facilities in California supplied a lot of the military that was from California, and to the detriment, if you will, of the people who lived here. But it worked and it was necessary. And I think the feds could step in at some point and say, Gavin Newsom, you screwed this up too.
Well, one thing the feds and Scott, Kurt, weigh in on this here because this was in Netter News today. Ask Katie about something else where the Supreme Court got involved in deportations. That was another great article you just put out, Katie. And I'm going to I would let one of these two fine gentlemen ask you, but they're not available. So Kurt, take the question. Ask Katie about it.
Well, Katie, let's talk about the Supreme Court and deportations. This is important. You've had rogue judges down at the district level trying to prevent Trump from actually doing the job he was elected to do.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us the details of the Supreme Court decision.
I think this was amazing, which is why I wrote about it. So the Trump administration won it, and I specifically said decisive decision from the Supreme Court because it halted a ruling by a federal district judge, one district judge of one district, who had prohibited the Trump administration from sending these criminal illegal aliens or deporting them to countries other than their country of origin. And this was so interesting. I mean, the Supreme Court said, the Trump administration does get to do this. And what was and I said their lead sentence, or no, I'm going to ignore that. The way the Associated Press reported it was repulsive. Again, another story for another day. But what was so interesting is by the end of the day, that same rogue district court judge went out there and ordered the Trump administration to stop deporting people to countries other than their country of origin. I mean, he tried to overturn the Supreme Court. So I can't wait to see what the Supreme Court does with him. Maybe he'll be impeached.
I did read that right. I thought I misread that. That's why I deferred to Kurt. I actually read that a judge tried to override.
Yeah.
And last I understood,
district court judge, a trial judge.
The district tried to override the word, and if I got this correctly, it's the word supreme, right? Meaning
yes,
the
exactly.
top decision. Again, I'm not up on constitutional law like Kurt. Kurt, doesn't that supreme mean supreme? Final call, last it, right? Like the review in baseball?
Yes, but unfortunately, 3 of the 9 justices didn't get it right. The 3 liberals.
No, I get it, but still, it's a winner, right?
Yeah.
6-3. So, so he actually, I read that correctly in an article. I thought I was having a stroke, which may be true still, but he tried to override. How did you explain that?
Just that he then turned around and ordered the Trump administration. It's the same judge.
Right.
So Margot Cleveland with the Federalist, and she is a lawyer. I am not. She actually put the information out there. She was stunned that this would happen. She posted, Counsel for Illegal Aliens tried to sidestep SCOTUS stay just hours ago. Supreme Court stayed injunction entered by lower court regarding removal to third countries. Anyway, it was absolutely stunning. He didn't explain why. He just tried to do it again. And she said, lower courts overrule Supreme Court. So no, you didn't read that wrong. This is going to get fun. But the bottom line is the Supreme Court did rule in Trump's favor. And I heard from another lawyer that this now makes 11 of 13 big lawsuits the Trump administration has won at the Supreme Court level. So good things.
Well, you wouldn't know that from Rob Bunta. He seems
No,
to
you
think he
wouldn't.
wins everything else, but of course that's a story for another day.
They lose
Can we-
mostly.
No, I
all
know.
37 of their cases.
Yep.
So what's interesting, I presume the Trump defense to this new order is going to be, sorry, Charlie.
Yeah, I'm sure it will.
Well, that's good news. So we can export everybody to El Salvador if we want.
Yeah.
And they can't stop us. Once they're
Exactly.
in El Salvador, they can have whatever process they want to have, and there's not a whole lot that anybody can do about it.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Non-citizens, Scott, non-citizens.
Correct.
And they're talking about deporting like 3,000 people a day
Yes.
from all over the country. So
Which again, I want to stress when I opened up, 3,000 people a day is nowhere near the record, okay?
No.
And this is the part, and Katie, maybe you can explain this a little bit. And Scott, could you do me a favor and scroll the globe at the bottom here too? Because you write so many good stories, we're just going to focus on a couple tonight, right? But explain to me, and maybe I even missed it in the globe. And look, you hang around journalists. Occasionally I go in the press room, as you know, and eat the free food because I have a badge. But why is this? I mean, why are literally more than even Gavin Newsom, and I get it, the crowd chanting is like, go get Gavin. But the reality is the press really that inept, really that evil? I mean, the people are nice. I've shared pizza with them. Why didn't they report it during the Obama days, the Biden days even? Why don't they report now? And why do they over-report the ICE protests? Is it money? What exactly do you think it is?
Well, I think there's a couple things going on here with the journalists, at least the ones that, the Capitol correspondents that I occasionally engage with. One, I think some of them are young enough to have gone to the current journalism schools, which teach them how to weave their opinion into hard news stories. That is now a thing. And that is obviously a problem. If one of those was, if I was their editor, it would be a huge problem. The other thing is I don't think a lot of these people are really that aware. They're lacking self-awareness of their own biases. And they tell themselves, and their editors tell them, we're fair and balanced, and we're neutral on the news, and they're not. And that's why I mentioned earlier, every reporter, every investigative journalist out there has a point of view. Just by the type of story I choose to write sometimes will indicate perhaps my interest in the topic, maybe even my point of view. So there's that. I sat on a panel recently with some other journalists, and the audience was free to ask us kind of anything they wanted to know about what was going on in the Capitol, all kinds of things. And one of the journalists on the panel made a comment, and he wasn't even trying to be funny, but well, I really wonder who the Republicans think they're going to be able to put up for governor this time. And I just looked at him like, really? And he was so lacking awareness, he didn't even realize that there's like a full campaign going on out there with Republican candidates. So I think it shows you, I used to be a member of the Sacramento Press Club, and I heavy say used to be, because I deliberately quit after only being in it a few months, and this was some years ago, because the president of the club at the time said at a board meeting, we're not going to be inviting any more Republicans to speak at our lunches because they're just so irrelevant, nobody cares. And I looked at him and said, there are Republicans elected to the Assembly and the Senate, and sometimes even governor. And he just looked at me like, that's what we're dealing with.
So they're unaware. They're so far in the deep end that they don't understand.
No, Scott, I disagree with you. They're very aware. They intend to impose a communist-style dictatorship where only their views are expressed. That's the real intent. They know what they're
I
doing.
guess the part that really worries me, and I want to continue this conversation for a little bit, because it's one thing to say, hey, you're not reporting the price of gas, and we're reporting the price of gas, and Netter's going to go ballistic in an article maybe on July 3rd or something. Okay, I get that. But now they've actually hit the point and this is my opinion out there, even though I have Netter News, okay? This would be in the opinion section. It's almost like they're trying to incite these paid for rioters, right? It's like they can't wait. I mean, it's gone beyond, hey, I disagree with you, LA Times. So actually gotten slightly better lately. I hate to say that. It's gotten to the point where it's like you watch the TV news and they can't wait to show you over and over again some felon with tattoos being tackled at a Home Depot so Karen Bass can get. So I'm almost a little bit with Kurt on this one. Not always with Kurt, I must admit. Do you think what's the plan here when it comes to deportation? I know you don't know this, but is it my imagination? Because again, I'm startled by the stats. This didn't get reported before. Is it getting over-reported now, or was it under-reported before?
I do agree that there definitely are some, and some with very, very big platforms who are really trying to impose their will, their message, their leftism on readers and really sway them. There is that. There's no doubt, and we've had that for a long time. A lot of the direction for the younger reporters comes from the editors.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where a lot of bad journalism happens, is courtesy of these editors, probably my age and even older, who are just raging leftists, and they love the power they have. So and then there are a lot of the young reporters are leftists, and so they're standing out there, waving their socialism signs practically along with the crowd. You think about the universities that they just graduated from, and what we're seeing coming out of these universities right now with the anti-Semitism and the race and gender craziness. This is a different breed, and frankly, most of them I wouldn't even entertain with an interview.
Yeah, and that's interesting you bring that up too, because that's kind of where I was hoping you would go. Lucked out here. Because I think we tend to blame it on the reporters, especially in TV news, and having, through the recall, gotten my experience to how the business works, so to speak, and having been on radio. It's much of the time, I'm lucky enough, like you are, to control my own production. This is what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Okay. But many of the TV productions, it's not the reporter deciding what they're going out to report on. They're like, Sally, get out there and find that go hang out at Home Depot for 12 hours with the truck. Here's a box of donuts, and wait for ICE to come along. And it's literally, and again, that I want to stress that. Yes, young people are being taught wrong in college, but it's not always young people. To kind of Kurt's point, I think, Kurt, it's kind of the older liberals who are literally shaping this TV news. Kurt, weigh in on that.
Well, who are the MSNBC viewers? 70-year-old cat ladies who are bitter about life.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that were out protesting on this so-called No Kings Day. Although I was amused that Trump turned it around on them and said, that he was glad that they recognized that there were no kings since we defeated him 250 years ago.
Do the journalists today have a class called propaganda? I mean, the who, what, where, why, they add propaganda to that list.
Hey, Scott, when I was at USC, the dumbest kids majored in journalism. Now they're journalists.
Careful, Katie is majoring in journalism.
The dumbest ones went into law.
Present company excluded.
I was poli-sci.
There you go. Okay. I was physics, so that'll teach you.
Ooh.
So anyway, obviously they didn't work out well for me. But
I
anyway,
have a few things, but we can talk about those later.
Let's talk about something here, right? Let's talk about the Globe. Let's talk about, we guided the conversation tonight to the price of gas and illegal immigration, because gas is something that touches everybody. and illegal aliens and deportations have hit the news, which, sorry, everybody, really in any day of the week would be a non-story. Trump
Yeah.
has shut down the border. It was a story before because literally there were more people flowing into the United States than water going over Niagara Falls. That stopped. And now they're like, oh my God, we're throwing some people out. Really no different than before. But let's talk about what you think you have written in the last 30 to 60 days and what you think you will write in the next 30 to 60 days that is something our listeners should pay attention to in the Globe.
So you're just talking about the hot topics. Okay.
Hot topics. Well,
Well, more than hot topics, I want to stop Katie for 1 second. Sorry, because you actually take a story and dive in deep.
yes.
And for everyone out there, capturing Katie is kind of like, putting a net over the Loch Ness monster and dragging to shore. She wrote me today, I'm going, 110 miles an hour? And I said, you slow down or something. So this is because you really do spend a lot of time. So more than even the hot topics, the topics you and your staff take the time to research. That's what's so fascinating about your publication. You just don't report the ball game scores. You report something deep. So tell us what's coming up and what we haven't talked about tonight.
Oh my gosh, what we haven't talked about. So many topics. I did actually today, interesting story, got contacted by the U.S. Transportation Secretary's office that the Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, had sent a letter to LA Mayor Karen Bass and the Chief Executive Officer of the Public Transit Metro Agency and said, you guys really so screwed up your handling of the riots and you shut down public transportation. I'm not so sure we have faith in you to handle the World Cup next year or the Olympics in 2028. Anyway, it's a fun, it's a fun little, I think you'll like it a lot.
Yeah, no, it's funny because sorry not to stop you here, but I've often asked that, and thank you for bringing that up, by the way, because we talk a lot about the Olympics. Right. Well, the World Cup is a pretty big event.
Yes.
And I think when people are forced to come around the world to stay at a Motel 6 that they rent by the hour, don't sue me, Motel 6. You know what I'm saying? Because there's no hotel rooms.
Yes.
And find out that basically many parts of LA aren't habitable for our humanity. They're going to be surprised. But the World Cup is coming up. Bass always makes it like she's pushing it out till 2028. But that's
I know.
Different.
We don't have a Reardon, we don't have a Ugroff. Who's going to step up? It's not going to be Karen Bass. She's inept. It's not going to be Newsom. He's inept. Who's going to step up?
I've asked the question also, and even asked how, with a somewhere between a $1 to $2 billion budget deficit in LA and the state budget deficit, which is a big lie at $12 billion, it's much larger. How are they exactly going to not only clean up LA, clean up the Palisades, get those homes rebuilt, and get ready with the infrastructure needed for the 2028 Olympics? I don't see it happening, and I think that the Trump administration's picked up on that. So that's probably this opening letter from Transportation Secretary Duffy is probably the opening salvo.
The World Cup will be.
Katie, they want to prevent you from driving to Olympic events in 2028.
Right. Exactly. I know. They want to prevent you driving anyway, but that's the first excuse. So there's that. The other things that I think people can read and appreciate is that we really try to keep a focus on Governor Newsom, because Governor Newsom is not and has not been working for the people of California since 2019 when he was sworn in.
Wait. Are you serious?
I know it's a shock. Yeah. So I've tried to make sure people know what he's up to, what he's doing, what his policies are, how his little sound bites on X, Twitter, are the complete opposite of what he's actually doing, or the complete opposite of what he said last week or last month or last year. So we keep a pretty tight focus on the governor because he's a disaster and the rest of the country needs to know this. So that's another one. The other thing that we
The Vin refers
Do
to
you
as
want to
pretty-
stop you for one
Yeah,
second?
sure.
I have to ask you, are you as, I think you are too, are you as honored on X to be stalked by whoever this dude is at the California governor's office? He's slowed down lately. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes, that would be the governor's deputy director of rapid response, Brandon Richards, him.
Yes, Brandon Richards apparently, and I
Yeah.
was actually amazed. No,
Yeah.
he rapid responds to my posts when I
Right.
tag at California governor, and I
Yes.
think I'm honored to be with you, Katie, because again, I'm
Yes.
just a schmuck that he's chasing down my post saying, "Not true. It's not true. Gavin's not an idiot. He's not really true. He had no idea this." And I'm like, okay. And when I first saw it, I go, "This is really weird." And then I noticed Roxanne, Jennifer, and a lot of our friends
Yep.
in common, where I'm getting X-stalked. I want to get Elon Musk and go, I'm actually being stalked again as we were doing the recall. So you know what I'm talking about, right? This
Oh,
isn't
yeah.
my imagination, okay? Yes.
Not at all.
All right, thank you.
All right,
Back-
I've got a question for Katie, and
Yeah.
this might be an issue that you're pursuing. On Friday, the Los Angeles City Council may vote on an eviction moratorium for illegal aliens affected by ICE raids.
Oh God.
I don't think that's legal, but
No.
it shows you why a lot of landlords I know have liquidated their portfolios in California the last 10 to 15 years. And
Yeah.
if you are a landlord, squatters and holdover tenants and whatever get all of the legal benefit of the doubt. In fact, I know of a landlord today in Riverside County Court that had a default judgment for an unlawful detainer, and it was arbitrarily overturned by a commissioner.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Arbitrarily.
These folks even get legal aid that we probably pay for. Yeah, it's totally illegal.
So an illegal criminal gets deported, and the landlord has to hold his apartment for him?
Yeah, exactly. The good news is the Deputy Attorney General in the Civil Rights Division is Harmeet Dillon from California, spent many years here.
Yeah.
She is focused like a laser beam on these very issues, which violate the U.S. Constitution and the issues of our legislature and passing laws that are unconstitutional after having been warned, even by their ledge counsel, and then the governor signing them into law. Jerry Brown was famous for that and would say, yeah, so sue me. Gavin Newsom signs them into law knowing they're unconstitutional. And her attitude is, I'm sorry, California does not get to have its own set of laws that violate the Constitution. So I think we're going to see a lot of activity out of the DOJ in the next few years on issues just like this.
Do you think CARB is going to be a target? Are they going to get rid of CARB? But the feds, I mean?
I don't know that yet. Working on it.
or at least get them so that they don't regulate anything that has anything to do with interstate commerce.
Right.
So
and that needs to exactly, because they've been dictating, interstate commerce on automobiles, and it's just, and Trump has said several times, I'm sorry, California does not get to dictate to the rest of the country what kind of catalytic converters we put on or what kind of gas we put in our cars. So, or the EV mandate.
But they are, because they're
Yes.
they're putting these requirements on, and it's such a big market that the car manufacturers cater to it, and they want to sell cars here. And so, it used to be it was a California car or a 49 state car, and
Right.
the car manufacturers, it was just too confusing. They just have all California cars now.
Well,
So
go
they
back
are-
to electricity. I got to get to another story, Scott. One we've talked about. And Katie, you haven't written on this yet, I don't think. I'm sorry. It's hard to keep up. But yesterday, Harmeet Dillon, well, not Harmeet herself, sued the Orange County Board of Registers. And I'll tell you why
Yes.
this one really hits with my opening rant. But tell us about that lawsuit, because I know what it's about, because I want to tell you a line that appeared in a lot of articles.
Actually, you tell us about it, because I haven't delved into it yet. It's on
Okay.
my list.
All right. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
And now presenting for Katie Grimes is Netter. What's really interesting is this. So, for everybody out there, each board of registers is required to report that they indeed take illegal aliens off their voter rolls. Okay.
Mhm.
That's,
And they
that's
have
for
to
federal
report to the
legislation.
federal government to make sure that blah, 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 so I don't insult anybody particularly, is not eligible to vote in federal elections. Fair enough? Well, the orange head of the orange, I think Bob Pratt's his name.
Bob Page.
Bob Page, I was close. Bob Page, as I stated, as I've been so rudely corrected, Bob Page turned in, great name here, by the way, pages of material over to the DOJ, that in those pages of material that he turned over, who they've eliminated from the voter rolls and who is on the voter rolls, redacted the information like their social security number, hold on, their birth date, etc. So the DOJ says, we'll ask you once, we'll try to ask nicely, can you send us an information? And Bob Page said, well, this is my imitation of Bob Page. You ready? Okay. And the DOJ said, this is my imitation of the DOJ.
Yeah.
Now, what's fascinating is, so they sued and said, dude, you can't do that. They're making a bit of an example of Orange County.
Mhm.
The part which really got me ticked off, that rankled my hide, made me angry, probably made my blood pressure go up, and actually before I even read it, I was better looking. That really just got my hide is what the press put in, the liberal press, at the bottom of these articles that everybody repeats. They said, oh, getting this information is just part of the Trump's administration's need to get everybody's personal information like social security number. No, it's not.
Oh.
If you go on the voter rolls, you have public information that tells us you're eligible to vote, you idiots. And that, by the way, passed a long time ago by both sides of Congress as part of the Voter Act. So that's what that's about, Katie. So apparently the Board of Registers have been redacting, in other words, taking out information. So we really don't know who is voting and who's not in places like Orange County. And I can't wait for you to write a story on that. And if you wouldn't mind, for an old guy like me who's probably going senile by the minute, please remember to remind people that the mainstream press seems to think it's grabbing people's personal information. It's not. It's being part of the voter rolls, which are supposed to be transparent, which is part of being, oh, that would be a republic, you idiots. And that's that story.
I will.
So just to more information, I talked to one of the board of supervisors. He said they didn't know anything about it until the lawsuit was filed. Evidently, it was assistant county counsel that came back with the response to the DOJ, and he did not go to the board of supervisors to talk about it first. Whether it went to the CEO or not, I don't know, and nor did the supervisor know. But I think they're going to agendize it, and the board's going to talk about it, and I would expect some fireworks, so it should be fun. Pay attention.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tune
And
in tomorrow.
wow. Maybe an ex-county council after that. Wow.
I
Well,
sure hope.
actually, hold on. This is going to sound weird. Kurt, I want you to weigh in on this. And Katie, then we're going to ask a couple more questions. I appreciate your time. You can tell we have a good time here. I believe that the county council is actually obligated to defend. Isn't that correct, Kurt? They're the county council. They have to defend against
No,
lawsuits.
they work at the discretion of the board. If the board says we're going to comply with the DOJ, they're going to comply with the DOJ.
Fair enough.
Well, more what I think they were trying to walk the fine line on is they were trying to obey state law and the heck with the feds. And I think that's what they were trying to do.
Yeah. Another one of those unconstitutional state laws. That's
true. But until it gets overturned, they're trying to take the tack that's going to keep the county out of court the best. And unfortunately, it didn't work.
Sure. Okay.
So, Katie, rapid fire here. Give us one more story. What should we look for in the next week? And are you we're taking off, by the way, for the 4th of July, Netter News and this show. Are you going to be writing during the 4th of July? Do I have something to look forward to when I'm on vacation?
The news never sleeps, so we always publish something, even holidays and weekends. I'll probably publish something really nice and happy and friendly on 4th of July or just after, because I love nothing more than a small town 4th of July parade where there's kids on bikes and muscle cars and horses and goats and, you know the type, fire engines.
And baseball,
Exactly.
Well, but Katie, the California Democrats wanted to take your muscle cars away by banning gas-powered cars.
Yeah, they
Well,
And
tried.
Republicans had to step in and stop it.
I
So
know.
you heard it here first. Katie Grimes on the 4th of July is going to write something warm and nice so it won't be about me. Katie, tell everybody out there again where they can find you. We really do appreciate you coming on tonight. You are a rock star amongst the mainstream journalism, and you don't know how I appreciate you. California Globe, tell us again in your own words. It's scrolling on the bottom of the screen how they can follow you on X and other social media along with the rest of your team.
We'll start with CaliforniaGlobe.com. CaliforniaGlobe.com. That is no paywall. You can check in on our news stories every day, multiple times a day. And on our front page, there is a place where you can sign up to receive our only once a week newsletter. Every Friday morning at 7, you will get a newsletter in your email box with our hottest stories of the week. I can be found on X/Twitter at Katie Sachs Citizen. I'm on Facebook, Katie Grimes. I'm on Truth Social, Katie Grimes. I'm not hard to find.
And Katie, by the way, for everybody out there, again, we have many people. I'm a simple man. No paywall. Can I translate for you? It's free. So
That's
you
right.
have that kind of money like Nutter News. It's absolutely free. So no paywall, no charge. Get in. Nothing required. Nothing to buy. No initials to put in, nothing out. It's free. And so you have absolutely no reason that you are not reading the California Globe. And I know many of you went to public school and can't spell California. Try spell check. I'll leave you on your own Globe. Katie, thank you so much for coming on tonight. You have no idea how we appreciate you. You move a mile a minute, so the fact we're able to corral you is kind of like finding the God particle in physics and just seeing it flash across your screen for a couple minutes. It's a win. Thank you. Have a fantastic 4th of July and the work you're doing, and stay in touch because you know I will.
I promise.
Katie.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you. Happy 4th.
Happy
Yeah.
4th. Happy Rockets
Happy
Day.
249th birthday to the greatest country on earth.
Okay, guys, we're rolling down to the 8 minutes there. It's great, isn't it, to hear Katie go in depth with some of these because she really takes the time to research a lot of these, okay? Kurt, what stories did we miss tonight in the 8 minutes we have left that you think we should talk about?
All right, there's some things that are going to make our viewers and listeners very angry. So we'll just
I
highlight
thought
them.
we
and
did
you
that
guys
already.
So the
More so than
Encinitas
the
School
aspirin,
District is asking the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, the Federal Court of Appeals, to overturn a ruling that lets parents opt out of their elementary age children from the radical indoctrination of homosexuality and sexualization.
Oh, you mean if I don't want my kindergartner to go to the drag queen story hour, I don't have to, but the schools say no. we
Or
want
to be given how-to sexual instruction at 6.
and the school or the lower court judge actually decided in the parents' favor, huh? And in the school
Yeah.
districts, which school district is it?
Encinitas, bunch of limousine liberals.
Encinitas, down in your favorite county of San Diego. What a bunch of losers. What else you got, Kurt?
Well, let's see. Then we talked about earlier the city of LA trying to prevent landlords from kicking out deported illegal aliens. We've had a number of stores complaining that they're empty because they're deporting illegal aliens, and illegal aliens are afraid to show their illegal faces in public, which I'm a fan of. You have whiny business owners complaining that their illegal alien employees that they're paying under the table are disappearing. And I want to review with you guys a statute that's very important that should be part of the media discussion of illegal aliens.
Okay,
8
this is the
USC.
This is the Dodger statute where the Dodgers aren't
No,
allowed
this
to
is
kick.
the illegal alien statute. 8 USC 1324. It's a federal crime to conceal,
Hold
harbor,
on.
or
Wait for
shield
my
illegal
eyes to
aliens.
glaze over. Okay, my eyes have glazed over. Go ahead.
Federal crime to conceal, harbor, or shield illegal aliens. The base penalty is 5 years, Scott. But if you're doing it for profit, there's an aggravated penalty of 10 years. If someone is injured, it's a 20-year federal sentence. And if someone dies or is seriously injured, it could be death penalty or life in prison. So all of these people who are hiring illegal aliens, it's a 10-year prison sentence in federal prison.
How many employers have gone to jail because of this?
They all should go to jail. Every one of them.
How about a big wide zero have gone to jail?
I'm telling you what should happen according to the law. And here's another one for you guys. All right, for you guys and for our audience. If illegal aliens get to pick and choose which laws they want to follow, how come we can't pick and choose the laws that we want to follow? And the first one I don't want to follow is I don't want to pay federal income tax. Fair,
We'll
right?
leave it as Gavin. And yes, Stephanie, answer you. That's all for the state of California. We need a parental revoke. Kurt, give us one or two more stories, and I'm going to roll a Scott and roll the in here so we can start break to the fourth.
So let's see here.
Here, I've got one.
Okay.
Supreme Court ruled today that South Carolina can cut Medicare dollars to Planned Parenthood.
Yep.
Big, huge deal.
Great.
How any moron, an attorney, oh, wait a second, I'm repeating myself, would sit there and think that the state didn't have the ability to hire whatever vendor they want to hire and not hire those that they didn't want. South Carolina did not want taxpayer dollars going to pay for an abortion. And yet these liberals sit there and say we can't end abortion. I haven't seen them writing any checks to Planned Parenthood so they can abort babies away in in South Carolina or one of these other states. Put their money where their mouth is. Go ahead. That's good news.
By the way, I want to answer Robert. Robert's got some good comments tonight. That's going to be coming. There are people being prosecuted right now for a lot of things, thanks to the fact that we have Bill Asali in and Michael Gates working with the Department of Justice, including a lot of people who thought throwing rocks at a police car was no big deal. A couple weeks they're going to find, as long as you don't mind serving 5 years in prison, it's not a big deal. Okay.
Well, Mike, you just mentioned Bill Asali. The last time I looked, the Senate had not confirmed his nomination.
He's already in the office doing his. He's in the office doing his job. Okay,
I think there's a time limit if they don't confirm him. Do you believe
he will get confirmed? I'm not too worried about that. In the meantime, we'll take what we have. Kurt.
All right, Mike. Another one. You've heard about the trash police. In California now, you have to sort your garbage by organics, recyclables, and landfill, wasting our time and annoying us, which is what liberals do. Now, in some liberal places, they are sending trash inspectors to open your trash can and look inside and to fine you if you don't sort your garbage the right way.
That's absolutely true.
Hey, I got a letter from my trash company because I was putting things, or my wife was putting things into the recycling can that didn't belong there. And they sent me a picture. They have a camera in the trash truck that watches all the crap that comes out of your trash can and goes into the truck. So if they don't think it, works and you're doing it right, they send you a nasty gram.
And by the way, I'm going to roll to Scott here to close the show out. Can you imagine the disappointment, by the way, when you apply for that job as trash inspector and you don't get it? Kurt, thanks a lot. I hope you have. Roll me with one thing here, and we're going to go back.
Hey, I'm all for life. I'm so happy that Supreme Court ruled in favor of South Carolina, even though the three liberal wackos didn't do it. At least the moderate Amy Coney Barrett and John Roberts came down on the correct side this time.
The guys, there's one more important thing before we go.
Hit it,
The
Kurt.
Senate parliamentarian is trying to overrule important parts of Trump's big, beautiful bill, and John Thune's not doing anything. Even Senator Roger Marshall is demanding that the parliamentarian, the Harry Reid parliamentarian, be fired. Republicans must fire this parliamentarian or overrule it. And if necessary, J.D. Vance needs to step in, run the Senate for a few days, fire the parliamentarian, and overrule this so we can pass the big, beautiful bill.
And great point. And Kurt, I have a feeling as Trump's going to win. Look, for everyone out there, Kurt and Scott, thank you very much. It's been a great, it's just great. We are not going to be on Netter News and everything. I want out there to take a moment, not just celebrate July 4th, that remember, we have the right to rant and rave because 250 years ago, a group of people ranted and raved against the English and won our freedom. And right now, we're winning, even in California, lots of our freedom back. And it's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. And you're going to watch gas go through the roof. And remember, it's up to you. Each little thing that you do, donating to Rebuild California, anything that you can, getting more people out to vote is one step closer we have to taking the most beautiful state in the country, sorry everywhere, California, back for the people. It's your state. Please, everyone out there, enjoy the 4th. Thank you for listening to California Free Radio. We will be
guys,
back
before
in
you
the
leave,
second
tell
week
us
of
your
July.
Twitter feeds one last time so everybody can.
Thank you. Netter News for me at Netter Mike. Rebuild California in the Facebook groups. Scott is at TaxFighter7. I'm on LinkedIn, Mike Netter, and we are virtually going to be everywhere. And by the way, the posting won't stop in the holiday week. Just some of the things we're not doing for the first few days. Kurt, Scott, everyone out there, happy Rockets Day. God bless. Take our state back, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
Enjoy
Blow
the
all the
fireworks.
fireworks up, just like John Adams said.